Nikita Koloff, the Russian nightmare, no, the devil's nightmare, here from It's Time to Man Up, challenging men to step into their true manhood. Your chosen Truth Network podcast is starting in just a few seconds. Enjoy it, share it, but most of all, thank you for listening to the Truth Podcast Network.
This is the Truth Network.
Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
I think we just dug another mile deeper in our barricade here, folks. We are talking about self-nullification here. Go back and listen to the radio show. Hopefully, if you haven't had a chance to hear that, you can get a hold of that on the masculinejourneyradio.org or masculinejourney.org. Either one works these days. So go on out there and make sure you listen to either one on the podcast here. So as we go deeper with this subject, we were just sitting around talking in between shows about really relationships, how living with Jesus is a relationship with him, which affects your relationship, therefore, with everybody else. So the deeper you go into his word, into prayer, into understanding who he is and trying to seek him out and understand who you are as one of his creations, and not only as, oh, he created me, therefore I am, but for that relationship with him. I was just thinking when Andy was talking on the last show, and it was kind of coming to me as like, when did it first really hit you that, you know, you really first had to kind of deny yourself a little bit and think about others? And for me, it was real easy to be selfish and do my own thing for a long time in my life. And then I had my first child. And yeah, marriage was a step forward. You know, getting a dog was a step forward. But boy, when I had a child that completely depended on me for every single thing that it was going to get or not get, well, my wife for more than me, but it was still just this life that you have been a part in creating and bringing to this world. And you're sitting there trying to think, well, yeah, I'd like to go. For me, it was always about sports. So if I want to go play baseball, I want to go play basketball, football, go bowling, golfing, you know, you name it, I love to go do it. And it's like, I have to put something else really before me because this child is really depending on you to come through. And that's one of the things that over my life and trying to figure out, okay, when did it really matter was when I had that relationship with Jesus, and the stronger that relationship got, it affects how I think about my relationships then with my family, with those that are my coworkers, those that I just meet walking through the store. You know, whoever it is, it just changes your focus. I'm not always perfect in it. We were talking earlier, we always kind of want to end up strangling somebody here and there because they're not treating us right. You know, it's not fair. That always still comes out. But honestly, when you're walking with Jesus, it doesn't get as sour, it doesn't go as south, and you can keep a much better perspective on who you really are. And that just helps. I know we were talking earlier about letting go and trying to do that. So guys, what do you have to share with our listeners about where you've had an opportunity in your life to let go, give over that control of that ship to the master? Harold's going to go first.
One of the big issues for me is I'm highly competitive.
No.
Always have been. The short guy syndrome. And one of my issues is, after having spent all those years in computer programming and systems analysis, things have to be right. And one of the issues that I've had to try to overcome is not always correcting someone when they say something that's wrong. They use the wrong word in the wrong context, and it's like, whoa, just let it go, because my first impulse is, to fix it because it's not right. And yet, how I need to look in the mirror and see, gee, Willikers, what's not right with you? If God looks at you as you really are, not as Jesus makes you look.
Yeah. And then there's things you do need to actually stop and correct people on. And that's, I think, even harder for me. Because you sit there and you say, okay, I got to put myself in a position of authority. I got to put myself in this position of basically knowing something or hearing something or seeing something that was wrong and it needs to be corrected. That's a hard place to put yourself into a lot of times.
Yeah, but pride gets in the way because, if I know I'm right, don't challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like to think if I'm uncertain, I'll couch it in terms like I think it might be or whatever. But when I make a very positive assertion, I react negatively to being challenged on that, and that's wrong of me. I know it's wrong, but I hadn't been able to get it changed all the way yet. My sweetheart's helping me.
I bet she is.
I think you're completely wrong. Sorry, Harold. No, you're not.
It wouldn't be the first time.
For me, it's a little bit different angle. When I live in the identity that I've assumed, I live in the identity the world's given me, the labels, I'm not able to love people very well. Maybe on the surface, but let something go wrong and my true, how I'm seeing myself comes out, which is normally negative towards someone else, right? And so when I live in my identity, I let that down and I live in the identity God's given me. I love people so much better because I feel better about me, right? It's hard to truly love somebody for a long period of time when you don't feel good about yourself, right? And so there's some self-care there that I need to let God do. I can go, white knuckle it and push through and do all the right things for a season. Then something would go wrong and I would blow up and, there'd be a huge withdrawal in the relationship account, of whoever that might be. And so, the key for me in loving others well and having grace and a lot of that is staying very connected so that I don't absorb the identities that the world tries to tell me that I am. The things that's happened to me in my life or the things where I've made mistakes. The enemy's always out there reminding of those things, right? And as long as I can keep him blocked at the gate and not let him into my head and into my heart, I'm going to be a lot better place of loving others well, and having grace and understanding that I need to have for them.
Yeah, and we talk about identity so much, and I think even your next clip, Andy, the fight within.
Yeah, so the fight within it's a pretty straightforward clip. It's about a UFC fighter, and I don't know anything about the story. I just know the clip. And he walks up on a homeless guy, and they just start talking. I think he gives him the homeless guy a pack of Skittles, and they just start talking. But really what comes out is this guy's searching. He's searching for some truth, some life. And in doing it, you could tell that he really wants to take and do something to obtain his relationship with God, which we've heard that many times. It's not about works; it's about grace. And this homeless guy just sets the guy straight on it.
I like the little green one. So tell me this: how can God love someone like me? Just because you're His creation, His child. He loves you like a newborn babe. But you have no idea all the bad things I've done, the pain I've caused. That's right, I don't. But I do know what God has done for you, what He wants for you. What can I do for God? It's not about what you can or can't do for His love. It's about your faith in Him, who He is in your life. How does faith change anything? With faith, you'll seek and you'll find God. Once you find God, everything changes. Not because it has to, but because you want it to. You want to do things his way.
Sounds like I got a lot of work to do.
You know, all of these are really just the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. And just think, when you think about that, there's a lot of work to do, but yet your work earns you nothing. It's not about your work. It's about his work and what he's doing in and through you. And boy, how much better is it to live that life just like Sam was explaining, where you're letting go. He's in control. You don't have to punish yourself for every little thing you did wrong. He's right there with you. You know, he's taking that walk with you. He's holding your hand and taking you through that walk. He's got you there at that moment right now for a reason.
Yeah, I wanted to read a scripture. I think Robbie wanted us to reference it, and I think it really goes good with that clip and what you're talking about. That, you know, self-nullification, I think probably the best scripture that explains it's where Jesus is talking about denying yourself. So I'm going to read that from Matthew 16:24 through 26. Then Jesus told his disciples, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul?" And I used to really like that scripture, but I found it to be very hard. But I think it's much more simple, kind of like that clip, in the fact that you're not having to worry. Deny yourself, that sounds very difficult, very hard, something I have to do.
No more ice cream, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I really do struggle with that kind of stuff. But, really denying yourself, we do think a lot of the things in the flesh, but I think it's denying your false self is really what he's saying.
Yeah.
And really finding
back to identity, right?
Yeah, finding your true self in him. I think it's also interesting that, they did know about crucifixion at that time, but this is before Jesus was crucified, and he was telling them to take up their cross. So they had to have known what that meant. But it actually means that cross that you're picking up. It is a burden. It is something that you do have to carry with you. But it's not like, that's why I think that it always stuck out with me. I don't want to be carrying a cross around. And I remember seeing the people that are simulating that around Easter time, carrying a cross. I don't want to do that. I say, Passion of the Christ. I don't want to do that. But it's not really like that. I think it's just a matter of losing that false self and finding your true self in him.
Yeah, and you think about Moses. He was just full of humility. Here he was, had all kinds of providential leading by God, talked to God, lived, great part of his life communing with God, and yet he walked in humility. There's just so much that God bestowed on him and told him how great he was compared to the rest of us morons around this world, and yet he stayed humble. That says a lot for a man like that, and that's, not the easiest thing to do, but again, that's what I love about the book of examples is you can reach inside there and find, oh yeah, there's these imperfect people that were striving and had some success in their life, and that's what we're striving for too.
Yeah, I was thinking probably my elementary introduction to self-nullification was introduced to me in a 12-step program. And, we were talking about it during the break. And, the exercise is that of listing the people that you resent or, that have hurt you. And then you're not really allowed to focus on what they did to you, but you have to find your part in the situation, because no matter how pure we think our motives are, our greasy fingerprints are on every situation. And so I always described it in my country fashion as cleaning off your front porch, not the other front porch. And so, example of that is, my first wife, my daughter's mother. I mean, I resented her. I mean, she was just the love that was broken hurt deep. And I mean, inside there was a whole lot of, I couldn't make a marriage work, a lot of self-blame and that kind of thing. But it was also the things that she did and said that I carried. But when I had to sit down with a piece of paper and dissect that, I can remember being in tears and realizing I did play a role in what happened. I did play a role in some of the things. And I had to own those. And ultimately God led me to sitting down with her and making amends the best way I could to what I had done. But what that led me to is that I was able to look the world in the eye again. Because I walked in shame and pity. I mean, having been an alcoholic and a drug addict and God knows whatever else, and you think you're worthless. But God says, no, there's redemption in this, but let's get some stuff out of the way. And it's a glorious thing to deny yourself. I'm like you, Rodney. I don't do it well. There are times when I think Danny's justified, and that's dangerous. Yeah, that's dangerous. But but it's the thing of it. It helps me with those relationships. And Jim Vitti, my dear friend, used to say that he'd make a symbol with his hand with the cross. He said, when you get this relationship right, talking about between you and Jesus, these relationships work out pretty good.
Yeah,
and I always keep that in mind. So
yeah, the vertical versus the horizontal. Very good. Thank you, Danny. Just thinking along the lines of where you're at with, relationships. This keeps coming out, and sacrificing yourself and thinking of others before yourself. And that's kind of where we go here when we go into the Forrest Gump clip that Andy provided.
So this is Forrest when they're in Vietnam with Lieutenant Dan and Bubba, and Forrest is, really concerned about Bubba. They're in a firefight, and this is just kind of the scene that goes there. Forrest really gets into he really becomes selfless in this, but Forrest, from what I could tell through the whole movie, he was living from the true self. What you see is what you got. There was no pretense or anything, but this is a flip.
Bubba was my best good friend. I had to make sure he was okay. Bubba! And on my way back to find Bubba, well, there was this boy laying on the ground. I couldn't just let him lay there all alone and scared the way he was. So I grabbed him up and run him out of there. But every time I went back looking for Bubba, somebody else was saying, "Help me, Forrest, help me." I started to get scared that I might never find Bubba.
Strong arm, I know my position is danger close. We got Charlie all over this area. I gotta have those fast movers in here now. Over.
Strong arm, wait one for flight.
Lieutenant Dan Coleman's dead. I know he's dead. My whole platoon is wiped out. Leave me here. Get away. Just leave me here. Get out.
Strong arm, how copy this? Over.
God, I said leave me here.
Strong arm, be advised your fast movers are inbound at this time.
Then it felt like something just jumped up and bit me.
I can't leave the platoon. I told you to leave me there, Gump. Forget about me. Get yourself out. Did you hear what I said? God, put me down. Get out of here. I didn't ask you to pull me out of there. Where do you think you're going?
Get Bubba.
I got an airstrike inbound right now. They're gonna nade the whole area. Gump, you stay here. That's an order.
I gotta find Bubba!
So in the clip there, it's kind of interesting. I'm not even worried about a spoiler alert. That's a 20-year-old movie. But, Forrest, he loses Bubba. He doesn't save Bubba, but Bubba kind of gives him his fishing business, his shrimp business, as he dies. But you notice there he saved Lieutenant Dan. And Lieutenant Dan, he actually impacts him and helps him find God later in the movie. But again, it's an example of him denying himself, of doing what he knew to be right, living out of his true self, and then the glory that came from that. from him finding his life and his purpose and impacting others with that is it's a great example to me of that.
I agree. As you listen to that clip, you get to see the opposite in Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah.
Right? The opposite of self-nullification.
Right.
I have to do this because my family's always died at war.
Right, yeah.
This is my purpose. This is my life. And, he has to go through and process that and break through that agreement, as he's doing stuff with Forrest on the boat.
Yeah, right.
Right, to where he can find some breakthrough and some freedom in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
right,
good
but
point.
he was wanting to try to live, his whole life by that.
Yeah,
that identity that wasn't really truly who he was.
Right. Yeah, he that had been imposed upon him, and it become his false self of, our family dies for others instead of we actually or live a life of our own.
Yeah, that false sense of hero.
Yeah.
That I've got to come through in a situation where no, that is not necessarily the situation that's important.
Yep.
There are those moments. Yep. Go ahead, go out there, be the hero.
Yep.
Do something for others. But in a situation like this, it was just about, nope, I'm just thinking about myself. And he lived with that for a very long time. Just lived a horrible life, was miserable, was just being a bum. Just I don't want to have anything good. Nothing good can even come to me. That was his total thought.
Yeah, and he got on Forrest for saving him.
Yes. You got somebody saves your life, and you're like,
right,
that's enemy number one.
Why
now.
Didn't you let me die? And then I think he actually tried to commit suicide or thought about it.
Yeah, and just eventually, is on that boat and in that storm, and doesn't that where God comes with us in our own lives? Is that storm? I know for me, I had just lost a job and was commuting down to Charlotte, got another job, and just fortunate enough to be listening to Dr. J. Vernon McGee at 5 in the morning because I had such a long drive, and just when God in that storm, because I was still like, now how am I going to make this work? I got to drive an hour and a half, each way to work, and how is this going to even, play? Because I'm not basically be in my kid's life, my wife's life, family as I knew it and what was going on was going to change. How in the heck is this going to work? And when he entered in and God said, here I am, this is who I am, this is who you are, everything flipped. And it's like, I didn't really think about all the things that were so bad in my life. I started thinking much more about others and where they were, and being able to, think about others in that way really helps free your own heart for yourself as well. And that's one of the things I found that was very freeing is, yes, when a lot of people say, well, when you're trying to go help others and do things for other people, that's when you get the most freedom. And that's where I've continually been in that spot.
A simple exercise sometimes is, if you get a nasty cashier with a bad attitude or a waitress or that kind of thing, is stopping just a second and thinking, what's behind that attitude? What are they going home to? What are they, just taking a moment and realizing that attitude isn't about me. I hadn't had that much time to make her that mad, I don't think, but or something to that effect, but to reflect on what they may be facing. And that kind of softens the blow. I think that's part of what we're talking about is the self-nullification of just going, you know what, I know this attitude ain't about me. It ain't, I used to train guys when we did appliance repair, going in somebody's house, and when somebody's got something that's not working in a restaurant or another, they can be very unreasonable.
Or a truck.
Or a truck, yeah. So, but I'm on the flip side of that one of it. But, and I say, you know what, you're not the target, but you are the closest thing they got to shoot at.
And I think also doing the same when you yourself have that attitude, like you said, when you're on the flip side and actually having your truck worked on, and it's not getting done right. Yeah. And you come, these things that dig at you, those are the things to go to God with. Why does that bother me so much? What is it about that I don't trust you in this? Why is it that I have to have control now? What is it about this situation?
You actually tapped on something that God's really been working on me with, and I shared a little bit about it a few weeks ago, but, I'm a worrier. I have to have control, and I've been in some situations here recently where I've had to relinquish control. Some of that, some financial things, and some of it, like even coming up to the wedding that we just had, there were a lot of relational issues that I had no control over. Right? And as I would pray about them, as I would pray about other situations in my life, God's only been giving me, it'll be all right. And I've become comfortable with not asking, okay, what's that mean?
Yeah.
Just letting it go, okay, God, you said it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Whatever the outcome is all right. Right? And so far, each time it's not necessarily been perfect, but it's been better than what I could even have tried to create on my own.
It's very freeing.
It's very freeing, and that trust relationship of realizing, God, I can really trust you in these things, right? I don't know what it means that it's going to be all right, but I know eventually the outcome will lead to good things.
And there may be a few it's not all rights before it becomes really all right to you and yourself and how you want things to come out. You often pray, you often go to God for things that you want. They don't always come right away. But part of giving that up and then trusting in our Father that He can come through in those situations, that's a huge step towards being able to trust and go deeper with the Lord. So everyone, we talk about a lot of these things at boot camp. Danny's going to do his dance. We've got a great time coming up the weekend before Thanksgiving. So please head on out to Masculine Journey and register for the boot camp. And we'd love to see you there. See you next week.
This is the Truth Network.